and we will officially start the quarterly meeting. I do need to turn off that sound because otherwise every time somebody comes into the waiting room, it's gonna click on. Let me disable the waiting room so everyone comes in. All right, good morning, happy Thursday. Thank you to all of those who joined us for the summit last week. So this morning's icebreaker before we get started with our presentation from Sam is, I want to know what your favorite warm or hot drink is. I put warm drink because most people, know warm drinks, but I am like an extra hot kind of person. So I'm the one who, when I go through to Starbucks, orders it extra hot. I like that feeling of like that burn in your chest where your body's like, that just heated me right up. Coffee black, hot cafe mocha. Is that just any kind of coffee, Bob? Earl Grey tea, hot-ish. Yes. Like my fellow
Yes,
tea.
it's all good.
I get that. Hot unsweetened tea. Peppermint mocha frap from Starbucks. I was so sad when they no longer did the sugar-free peppermint mocha because I don't do any sugar. Alyssa, an iced coffee girl all year long. I actually get that. I get that. Coffee. See, and I can't do coffee anymore. That's why I like seeing all the little coffees in here. But I do, I found the best. So I do every morning turmeric ginger tea with lemon juice. And I found a great brand called Good Earth that, oh my gosh, it is so amazing. Any coffee, I don't discriminate. I love it. I love it. Hibiscus tea. That's my jam during the day for cold tea. Cappuccino. I do have to have caffeine though at some point. I can't go my day without caffeine. So although I start off with non-caffeine tea, I go straight to tea after that. Straight to caffeine after that. Love this. Well, welcome everyone. Yes, caramel coffee, hot turmeric, lemon, honey water, and also apple cider. Pretty much anything hot. Yeah, Amy, I feel you. Well, I'm really excited. I can't wait to have our guest speaker today, Sam Garman, who is going to talk to us on the power of transformational relationships, but really working with youth and what that looks like, and what are some ways that we can work with them in trauma-informed ways and have those relationships. I'm really excited for that. After Sam's presentation, we're going to do just a few announcements, and then we're going to go into board updates. So if you're just recently joining, you may not have heard that the board has been working really hard over the last few months on creating a vision statement for the consortium and also core values, realizing that as we are growing and expanding at astronomical levels is what it feels like for me at sometimes. We didn't have anything finalized, and really wanted to get kind of that framework and that roadmap of where are we going to go in the future and what are those values that we hold dearest. And we know that we can't really get a picture of it ourselves without your input. And so after the announcements, we'll do a little bit of board updates and update you on the elections and who our new board members are that will be coming on for January of 2023. And then we'll present the vision statement and the core values, and we will do some small group breakouts just so we can get your feedback and see what that all looks like. So we are really excited to get started. Sam, I will not make you listen to your own bio because it's one of my things I hate living through. I will stop sharing though, and I would like to introduce Sam and let him do his own introductions.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate that. Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you all today. I recognize some names, so it's good to see those of you who I haven't seen in a minute. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sam Garman. I'm a senior youth engagement consultant. And I do sort of my consulting kind of fits into several buckets. I do youth engagement consulting around supporting young adults, specifically with relationship building and all kinds of other things. I do foster care reform consulting. I do LGBTQ inclusion consulting. And then I work on coaching as well. I'm a certified youth resilience coach through the Youth Coaching Institute. And I am this close, like we're literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from being a certified coach through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, which is, if you know anything about the International Coaching Federation, quite the investment of time and energy. So I'm hoping I will have my certification in the next several months. But all that to say that I have the thing that I have sort of built my life around is working with young people, and really thinking about how we support young people, how we create equity in our systems specifically. A lot of my work is around foster care, young people who work in foster care. And so that has really been a lot of my focus. And I got into that because I was a foster parent. Long ago and far away, I got my master's degree in nonprofit leadership. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to run a nonprofit. And then I was the director of programs for New Pathways for Youth. Some of you may know New Pathways for Youth, and was loving the mentoring work, and then became licensed as a foster parent and was like, oh, this system needs we should do something about this. And I wasn't quite sure what that looked like. And then I saw a job post for the Maricopa Community Colleges that was around supporting access to higher education for young people who were in foster care. And so I understood the higher education system because our mentoring work was really around supporting young adults to get to college. And I understood the foster care world because I had become a foster parent and was seeing the way that that system was a real mess. And so I worked for the Maricopa Community Colleges for 7 years, overseeing all their programming around higher education and foster care. And as a result of that, it sort of launched me into a national world because there are not a lot of folks doing that work. And so it's a kind of a small world. And once you get into that world, people were like, oh, we could use your insight here and we could use your insight here. And so I left Maricopa in February to consult full time. And since then, it's been really great. Just me personally, I have 3 little boys who I adopted from foster care. They are now 10, 9, and 7, which is kind of wild to think about. We're squarely in like preteen stage right now, which has been a wild ride. For those of you who have been on that ride, you can probably relate a little to that experience. And when Angie and Jessica reached out to me and actually being here has taken I think it's been almost a year. They've been trying to coordinate it, and there's always something else sort of in the way. And when Angie and Jessica reached out, I thought, well, this folks knows a lot about trauma. And I'm guessing a lot of you work with young people, but there is some really interesting new research that I've come upon, and that I am seeing a way forward in supporting our young people, even as we are doing work around reforming our systems and making them more trauma informed and making them more healing centered. And so I thought I would share that with you all today, and I hope that you will find some things in here that are useful. I am a big fan of giving me some reactions. So I won't necessarily be able to follow the chat. That is, my brain only does just the one thing at a time. And if I'm talking to you, I cannot also be reading the chat. So I'll try and check into the chat. But for those of you who know the reactions button down there on the bottom right-ish side of your screen, I would love to see some reactions. Tell me, give me a thumbs up if things are if you agree with something, a laughing face emoji, a fire emoji, give me the poop emoji if I'm totally on the wrong track, whatever it is that you need to put in there. But maybe we could start with just a first question. There are 2 buttons that one is yes and one is no in the reactions tab. If you can give me a yes if you work every day with young people, and a no if you do not work with young people on a daily basis. Okay. I see some yeses, I see some no's, I see some thumbs up. Okay. All right. Okay, it looks like we kind of have a mix going, which is great. Because I think what we're talking about today is applicable for lots of people. So another yes or no, give me a yes or no. Do you have decision-making power around the policies or procedures in your organization? Ways in which people engage with your clients? Yes or no? Okay. All right. So for those of you who were a no to working with young people every day, but a yes to having access to making decisions around policies and procedures, there's some stuff for you in here. To those of you who were a yes to working with young people every day, but a no to policies and procedures, there's some stuff for you in here. To those of you who were a no to both, hopefully there is some stuff in here that will engage you and give you an interesting insight into some of the possibility in our work around supporting young adults, especially young adults who've experienced trauma. Because my work has been so grounded in foster care, a lot of my examples are related to foster care, but I will tell you that almost everything that I'm going to talk about is really able to be translated to any young adult who's experienced trauma. The foster care system is challenging for people to come out of because it is bred in trauma. So trauma is really the base of a lot of what's happening for young people in foster care. And so the things that we learn about what's true about young people in foster care can often be extrapolated beyond that. So when I give an example, it's not just saying this only works for young people in foster care. That feels important to say. So I'm going to share my screen. I did a PowerPoint. And so we'll kind of go back and forth a little with PowerPoint and maybe like this gallery view where we can all see one another's names and faces. So we'll see, we'll maybe switch around a little bit, but just, hang the tech of Zoom is something that I have gotten comfortable with, and let's hope that we can keep it going. So I just called this transformational relationships. What's the point? That felt like a useful thing to call this. All right, and we're going to switch it to this. Okay. So I would love to hear from some of you about a dream you have for a young person in your life. This could be a sibling, this could be a child, this could be a grandchild if you have them. If you work with young people every day, what are some dreams for some young people you have in your life? Feel free to come off mute and just shout them out.
Sam, I would love for my children to find their passions and live them out.
Yes, love that.
A foster kid that I've mentored since she was 12. She's in her 20s, and I have a dream to see her graduate from college.
Yeah, love that. What else?
A dream of children learning healthy independence.
Yeah, healthy independence. That's great.
My dream is that all children have access to nutritious foods.
Yes, absolutely. I love that for us.
My dream would be to have children have their voices heard.
Yeah. I see some things in the chat that always stay true for where they are. We want young people to have hope for their future, to achieve their potential, have access to healthy decision-making and access to education and health, be their own person. I love that. When I think of my kids, one of the things I feel really strongly about is that I hope that they find relationships and people who make them feel like they belong, and that they are supported and loved by people around them. Being happy and living their best lives. So when we think about the things we want for our kids, the things we want for our people, whether they're found family or whether they're our own children, we're often dreaming really big for them. And my experience has been that in systems, what happens is that kids who are involved in systems get a much lower bar in terms of those dreams. Especially when we're thinking about foster care, we want them to age out into independence, which is like, do they have a place to live and can they find a job? Like, we're not thinking about fulfilling life potential. We're not thinking about, are they everything they can be? Often it's literally the baseline. Are they not homeless? And what I have found is that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. And really what we were talking about when we talked about our dreams for young people is really self-determination. So self-determination is, there's several definitions here. I think there's a little piece of that there's a little piece of truth for what I understand self-determination to be in all of these things. Determining things by yourself without outside influence, freedom to live as you choose, to act or decide without consulting others, the ability or power to make decisions for yourself. And so when we think about self-determination, it is really the baseline, the bottom level of everything we just said we want for our young people. So self-determination leads to intrinsic motivation. If you have self-determination, you are going to find things that you are intrinsically motivated to do. Without self-determination, everything you do is going to require extrinsic motivation. So I know there are probably a bunch of us on here who, yes, we do our jobs because we get paid to, but maybe we chose them because of something inside us that tells us that we want to make the world a better place. We want to support our education system. We want to ensure that children thrive. We want to make sure that our kids are fed. Whatever that thing is, there's something inside of you. And yes, you're receiving extrinsic motivation of a paycheck. Hopefully, I hope all of you are receiving the extrinsic motivation of a paycheck. But that intrinsic motivation led to fulfilling purpose. Intrinsic motivation also helps us do things like, keeping our bodies healthy and finding hobbies that fulfill us and, finding relationships that fulfill us. So that intrinsic motivation is a really core piece of successful adulthood. The next thing that is an output of self-determination is ability to self-regulate. So I think we all know that self-regulation is like thing number one you need for successful adulthood. Being able to regulate myself, my emotions, my actions, so that I can appropriately engage in society. Now there's some big quotes around appropriately engage in society. Obviously that looks a little different for everyone, but that ability to self-regulate comes from self-determination. It also relates to help seeking. So there is, I guarantee, no one in this room who is completely competent and able to manage our life by ourselves without help. So self-determination is actually what drives help seeking. And it's interesting because often what happens is we expect young people who've experienced trauma to seek help. Like, come ask me. I will be happy to help you. But they actually don't have what's required to ask for help because they haven't been given access to self-determination. They haven't been given the conditions that create that. And then the last one is academic resilience. So this comes off obviously from my work in post-secondary education, academic resilience, but this is also a broader space of resilience. So all the data and all the research tell us that self-determination is directly tied to these outcomes. So the important question is, how does a young person get self-determination? Here are three things that go into self-determination. The data tell us, sort of all the research around self-determination tells us that these three things are necessary conditions for self-determination to exist. The first one is competence. A young person knowing what they are good at and knowing that they are good at things. Understanding that they have unique and special skills, that they are capable of achieving their dreams. All of that is wrapped up in competence. The second piece is relatedness. Knowing that you have people who love you and that care for you and that you love and care for. Feeling a sense of belonging, feeling a sense of connection. That relatedness is absolutely key because often your relatedness actually can connect to and lead to competency. Think about your own children. I think about my kids. I tell them all the time about things that they're really good at. wow, bud, you are so amazing at math. I see you solving those problems. Like really building into them a sense of what they're good at and what they know and what they can do actually can sometimes come from that relatedness. And then the last piece is autonomy, the ability to make your own decisions, the ability to make mistakes, the knowledge that you have some access to controlling your life. Those three things are what are required for self-determination. And I mentioned help seeking, and I think help seeking is an important thing to sort of tease apart just a little bit, because that help seeking piece is its own thing. So let's talk a little bit about help seeking, because when we think about the young people we work with, a lot of times young people who've experienced trauma, we think like they just need to ask for help and we would be totally willing to help them. Well, help seeking actually is kind of its own thing that can be really tricky for young people, and has a pattern among young people who've experienced foster care. So the APA Dictionary of Psychology defines help seeking as searching for or requesting help from others via formal or informal mechanisms. So that could be coming formally to a case manager and saying, I need support with housing, or I need support with food. That could be informally. How many of us have put a request out on social media where it's like, I need a plumber stat. Does anyone know someone who's good? Right? That's help seeking, because we're asking more of an informal network. How do we get the help that we need? And so there are really kind of three ways that three types of help seeking. So the first one is practical. So that help seeking could look like, hey, I need rent assistance, or I need utility assistance. It could look like I need a food box. It could look like I need the name of a plumber, or I need daycare, or any one of several, many possible practical options. So these are probably things, they tend to be tangible. The second type of help seeking is emotional. And so that might be like, hey, I'm really grieving right now and I need someone to be with me. Or I am so angry and I don't know what to do with that. I need some help around this. Or I'm really sad, or I'm experiencing depression and I need some support around this. Those emotional pieces really are grounded in relationship or relatedness. And so that could really look like seeking out from someone that social and emotional support that we're looking for. And the last one is belonging. So asking for help or seeking help around feeling like you belong. So that could look like cultural connection. It could look like identity connections. So we think about young people of color, especially in the foster care system. Often young people of color are removed from their cultural identity and experience. And so when they're looking for help seeking as adults, a lot of times what they're looking for is an opportunity to belong to culture in a way that they were removed from. Be based on LGBTQ identity, right? So a young person who is coming out might be seeking help to feel like they belong in a community somewhere, or feel like they can be connected. And so these are sort of the three different types of help seeking behavior. And there are a variety of sort of things to understand about help seeking behavior. The biggest question is, well, why don't they ask? I've told them a dozen times they can come to me and ask for help. And then we get in a situation where it's all going to heck in a handbasket and they haven't reached out. Like, why do they keep doing this to themselves? Well, there's actually a lot of research about this. So why don't young people ask for help? The first is a stigmatized sense of self. So there's a bunch of research around young people in foster care that says that within the system of foster care, a lot of times young people take on the stigma that exists within foster care, that there's something wrong with them, or that they're unlovable, or that they're unwatchable, or that they're bad. And so because they take on that stigma, they are trying not to prove that right. And so if I don't ask for help, I won't prove you right that I'm bad. or I won't prove you right that I need help. I can be independent and I only need me. The second one is survival as self-reliance. If you have been involved in systems where people have let you down, whether that's foster parents or case managers, or generally the system in itself, or its biological family, when there has been a bunch of people who let you down, you create a belief about yourself that is around survival as self-reliance. And that becomes an identity and a source of pride. I don't need anyone else, because if I don't need anyone else, no one else can let me down. If I never ask for help, no one can say no to me. And so what happens is that we are often asking people to work against their own identity. So I know that this is a part of your identity, but could you please call me and ask for help? And that creates a major struggle within young people as they're pulled between this, like, I've created this identity for myself. If I let this go, who am I? And I really need the help. And I have built a relationship with trust with this person. And so it's this back and forth struggle. And the last thing is self-protection. The number of young people that I worked with who said, like, listen, I can't trust people. I don't trust anyone because I've never found anyone who should be worthy of my trust. And that is brutal to hear. And it's also not about me. And so in relationship building with young people, being able to sit with that with them, and yeah, that's awful. It's a terrible feeling to not be able to trust anyone. I'm going to keep showing up for you. There is a lot within the foster care system that negatively impacts these two things. So when we talk about self-determination, the three things that go into it: competence. When you are a young person who experiences foster care, often you don't get the same opportunities as your peers to develop and explore the things you're competent and good at. If you're in foster care, who's going to sign you up for the gifted program? Who's going to put you in AP classes because you're just freaking brilliant? Who's going to put you in gymnastics classes? Is it going to be the group home that has to then take a van of 10 kids to drive you to gymnastics practice 3 times a week? Sure is not. Is it going to be like, who's going to get you set up for soccer and drive you to practices and have you be successful at soccer? Who's going to discover that you are just this incredible artist and make sure that you have opportunities to paint and to draw and have all the skills and access that you need? That competency that we are hoping that young people build is often removed from them when it comes to foster care because of the way the system is set up. It's not individual actors within the system. And I think it's really important to call this out. There can be lots and lots and lots of individual actors within a system who are committed to young people thriving, but the way the system is set up creates a situation where those individual actors can't have the same level of impact that they want to because of the way the system is moving. The second thing that young people need for self-determination is relatedness. I heard a TED Talk by a young man who had aged out of foster care, and he said that by the time he was 17, there was no one in his life who had known him for more than 2 years. When I think about the impact that has on a young person, especially in that stage of adolescent brain development, having no one who knows your story, having no one who is deeply connected to you and can tell you things about your past, having no one who holds your history with you and for you, the impact of that means that relationships are pretty damaged for a very long time in your life. And I think about my own kids. My 10-year-old is fascinated with the story of the first word he said. Now, I can't guarantee that it's the first word he ever said because he wasn't in my care until he was 14 months old. But the thing I can give him is the first word I heard him say and where it happened and when it happened. And he's fascinated by that because there is a relatedness that comes with that of having someone know your story. And so because I know his story, He feels a connection and relatedness with me in a way that is different than other kids. Now, my youngest was with us. His placement came to us directly from the hospital. So I can tell him lots of things about his development and lots of things about his story that I can't tell my first child. And there is tension there for him because of that relatedness, because of that connection that looks different because of how long they've been in my care. The last thing that's required for self-determination is autonomy. Autonomy, the ability to make your own decisions. When we think about the foster care system, when we think about the juvenile justice system, autonomy is basically the first thing to go. Like a person in a white government car pulls up to your house and you now have no opportunity to decide where you live, who you live with, what kind of clothes you have, what school you go to, what friends you're allowed to have. All of that is taken away. And even in the later years of foster care, the access to autonomy is really limited, especially for our kids who live in group homes. It is absolutely outside of the way that normal adolescent development should be happening, because our young people often don't have access to making decisions. Who do they want to date? What job do they want to have? What after-school activities do they want to participate in? Can they go to the mall with their friends? Kids don't go to the mall anymore. Whatever they do now, I don't know what they do. I don't have teenagers yet. At some point it's coming and I'll figure it out. But whatever it is that those ways of relating to their peers, they often don't have the autonomy to choose those things. So when we think about system-involved young people, what happens is that the three things they need for self-determination are dramatically impacted by their experience within the system. And one of those things is help seeking. And so then what we end up with is young people who don't have self-determination, they don't have help seeking behavior. And then we go, how come 25% of young people who experience foster care end up homeless? How come 33% of them are on public assistance? How come 50% of the people who are in jail or prison in the United States were in foster care? How come? Why could it have happened? It's because every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Now, it's not what we want, and yet it is what is happening and has been happening for decades and decades and decades within our systems. And yet we keep doing the same thing to get these same results, because we haven't fundamentally changed what's happening in our systems. I could go down this road for 100 hours, and we could talk about system reform, and we could talk about the ways in which we should invest into our systems to create a family well-being system instead of a child welfare system. We could do that. We're not going to do that, because there is hope here. Because what is possible for our system-involved youth is for these things to be built. And the way that those things can be built is through their transformational relationships with you, with the people in their lives who care for them. If you are on this call, or if you're on this Zoom and you gave me a thumbs up that you have access to policy and decision-making power, here's something that you should know. One of the policies and procedures in your organization should be to allow the people who work with young people every day access and time to have transformational relationships with the people they serve. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So it's important to note that transformational relationships provide the three things that are the baseline for self-determination. So they provide competence. A transformational relationship gives the reassurance to a young person that they are competent, that they know what they know about themselves, that they should be the one who makes decisions for them because they know enough. It gives relatedness. A transformational relationship is a true and authentic relationship. It can be boundaried, it can be professional, it can be absolutely above board, and the person in it can be a fully functioning professional, and it can be real and authentic and meaningful for a young person without crossing those boundaries. It is absolutely possible. And a transformational relationship provides autonomy. A transformational relationship says that the young person gets to make the decisions for themselves And if they mess up, the transformational relationship is not going to be changed or harmed. The transformational relationship is a place where young people can fail safely. It doesn't mean that there will be no consequences for their decisions. The young people that I've worked with across the years, there have been lots of consequences for their decisions. But the consequences are not from me within our relationship. They're never in trouble with me. I'm never mad at them. Sometimes I can get frustrated. Oh, we talked about this and you're doing it anyway. But I am not saying to them, well, I'm not mad. I'm just really disappointed in you, because I'm not adding shame to our relationship. And so finding that balance where they have autonomy to do the things they can do really gives space for that transformational relationship to create massive change for a young person. The other thing is there's some really amazing research that just happened from my colleague, Dr. Jamie Bennett. She did some research around coaching for young adults who have experienced foster care in post-secondary education. And this is her dissertation study, which was years and years and hours and hours and hours of her life. And so here's what she found in that study. Without transformational relationships in a young person's life, their primary drive was self-protection. So when it came to help seeking, they were trying to protect themselves. So I can't ask for help because I have to protect myself. I'm protecting my sense of identity. I'm protecting my understanding of myself as a person who is able to be independent. I'm protecting myself from the possibility of disappointment. And what happened as a result of that was a pattern of avoidant help seeking. And when she interviewed some young people, one of the things, the interview point that stuck out to me and like knocked me off my seat was a young person said, I can ask for help sometimes, but I can never ask for support. And for me, that was so reminiscent of the way that so many of the young people that I've worked with have showed up. They can come and ask me for help on how to drop a class. But what they couldn't ask me for was the support when things went south with their professor and they didn't know how to have a hard conversation. And so what happened is they just avoided. They avoided me, they avoided their professor, and all of a sudden, they are not meeting satisfactory academic progress. They're in $1,000 of debt. They can't re-enroll in their classes. And it's like, how did this all go wrong? If you had just asked me for help, I could have helped you. And the reality is that what they were doing was protecting themselves. And because they were doing that self-protection, they avoided, and we ended up with these really disastrous results. So that is without transformational relationships. What does it look like when transformational relationships are present? So the interesting thing that this research found is not that when transformational relationships were present, young adults could come and ask for help and everything was hunky-dory and we all skipped off into the sunset. Like, I would love for that to have been what she found. I was like, Jamie, is there any way we could massage these results? But that's not what she found. What she found is that what happened is that instead of being self-protective, the young person became relationship protective. And so there were still some things that were really tender for them and hard to ask for help around. So maybe money is often one of them, or maybe it's there's some shame locked up in their decision around becoming a parent. And so to protect the relationship, they did adaptive help seeking. So they were willing to ask for help around a wide variety of topics, but there was maybe one or two areas that were still so sensitive that they felt like they didn't want to be a burden to their coach. They didn't want to feel ashamed of their inability to figure it out in front of their coach. They didn't want their coach to be disappointed in them. And so what happened was this adaptive help seeking. So transformational relationships can't solve all of it. But what it can do is make a massive step forward in being able to actually seek the help that they needed and to build opportunity for relatedness and protection and in that relationship together. So when we started doing this work around transformational relationships, I scoured the internets and I scoured research And what I found is that people were using this phrase, but no one had really defined it. And I've read a lot of Dr. Brene Brown in my life, and I learned from her that if you don't find a definition that you like, that you can just make one up. And so the group of us that has been doing this work around transformational relationships made up this definition. We think it's a pretty good one. And so I will share it with you. We're calling a transformational relationship an interdependent relationship between two or more people that produces positive, lifelong benefits for all parties. So the keys here is that this relationship has to be interdependent. It means that it is not a one-way relationship. The young person is not coming to me to get what they need. It's not transactional. So what they're not going to do is come to me, get what they need. I'm going to check them off on my list, and they're going to walk away. A transformational relationship means that I'm actually learning from them too. I am also invested in this relationship. I'm getting something from it. The difference between how that looks for young adults and how it looks for professionals is that we are often getting professional gain from it. So we're learning better how to work with young people. We're learning better how to provide services. We're learning better what are the patterns we're seeing, and how can we create our programming better to meet those patterns. We're learning what things need to happen in our advocacy space to make the whole system better because of what we're seeing from our young people. We are also going to get some personal gain, but I want to be clear that this is very boundaried personal gain. So we are not getting the same thing that a young person is getting. We might be feeling a ton of care for them. We might look at them as in the same kind of way we look at a nephew or a niece of ours, where we really care for them. That's a real care, but it doesn't transfer over into they come and sleep on my couch if they don't have a place to live, right? So it's possible to have these boundaried professional relationships that are also interdependent. What a young person is getting out of that is a understanding of what it looks like to have a relationship that's balanced, where there isn't power over or someone else making the decisions for you. What they're getting from that is what it looks like to be in a relationship where the power is neutralized as much as it possibly can be, and that they are able to rely on you, and that you also rely on them to show up in the relationship. So in a transformational relationship, it can look like, hey, I didn't see you this week, and man, I really miss you when you're not here, right? That is different than you didn't show up this week. And so what that means is you're no longer eligible for extended foster care or whatever other, disciplinary measure we might use. So that relationship looks really different. And so a young person is getting an understanding of what does it look like to be in a healthy relationship? What does it look like to engage in a disagreement in a way that is healthy and that allows the relationship to still thrive? So young people are getting a ton of skills around relationship building and around being known, being seen, and being cared for. And what that means is that they can take those relationship skills that they learn and they can develop other relationships with those skills. So we're actually giving them the platform from which they can launch to thrive with other relationships and by being connected to people that they care about. So I've said all that. And now the question is, well, but how? So if you buy that transformational relationships are a good idea, the next question is how. And I know a lot of you work with young people. And so what I'm actually interested in is hearing a little bit from you all, what it looks like to have transformational relationships in your work. And so let me pull up, I'm hoping that some folks have used Menti before because Menti is a cool option for giving access to all of us hearing from one another our varied understanding and experiences. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. With that link, you can go to a question on Menti. And what I'm going to share the screen of all of your answers coming in, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion-ish kind of idea where you all are putting in answers and we can talk through what it is you're saying and how those things show up in interdependent relationships. So when I say an interdependent relationship, what is it? What are the elements that make that possible? Okay, so we're sharing the screen here. Can you all see that the Menti screen? Can I get a thumbs up from someone if you can see the Menti screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Awesome, love that. Thank you. All right, so as we start getting answers in here, I can't see the Menti screen. There it is. All right, so let's talk about trust. Oh my gosh, you all are right on. So trust, absolutely. It means that they can trust that we are not going to share their experiences or their story outside of our relationship. And you trust that they are going to show up and that they are going to engage with you, and that when you decide together on a course of action, that they're going to go do it. Oh, I don't leave when you mess up, I mess up too. I love that. Coming together from a space of real meaningful understanding of what it is to be a young adult in the stage of adolescent brain development. That means that they should mess up. That's actually the whole point of adolescence, is to mess up. And so normalizing messing up and still being there. Authenticity, absolutely. Showing up as who you are, talking about your tough day, talking about your kids, talking about your hobbies, the things that you really love, because that actually creates them knowing that you're a real person and not some like robot person who works for the school or who works in this nonprofit, right? And who just shows up and like, no, they're always going to be there, right? That relatedness actually gives opportunity for them to build a different level of relationship with you. Asking questions instead of solving. I don't know who said this, but I will tell you that is at the heart of coaching. So you're speaking my language right now. Asking questions, helping them identify what's happening for them. What's the best thing for them? We're not going to solve this problem. I'm not going to solve this problem for you. Let's talk it through so that you can build the skills to solve it yourself. Because if I solve this problem for you, the next time you have a problem, you're going to come back to me. And I haven't actually given you anything of value because you haven't built the skill to do it yourself. Safety, absolutely. Making sure that you are a safe person for them to talk to. If they tell you something that makes your eyebrows raise and makes you make the oh my God face, don't let your face show that, right? Like meet them with a sense of acceptance and understanding and unconditional positive regard for them. And also physical safety. Those both things are important. I love that someone said individualized consideration. Transformational relationships are absolutely individualized, and they have to be person-centered. So what I do with one young person is not going to look the same as what I do with another young person. And it can also look like understanding how they learn, how they see the world, and then meeting them in that space. I've worked with all kinds of young people who are like, listen, I cannot do a phone call. Like I need to be face-to-face with you, or I need to be on Zoom. Like a phone call does not work for me. Okay, so we're going to meet in person, or we're going to meet over Zoom. Or they say like, listen, it is really triggering for me when this thing happens or when that thing happens. I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out how to work around that. So our relationship is really individualized, supportive. Yes. Having the like ongoing support, you can trust me, that you can come to me. Yes, let's see, we've got some other things. Yes, what else do we have? Giving the time to have authentic conversations, absolutely. So if you're a person who makes decisions about policies and procedures in your organization, I know in our higher education world, our advisors have 15 minutes for an appointment. In 15 minutes, you're supposed to understand what a young person wants, figure out what classes they need to sign up for, and then sign them up for those classes. Like that is not possible to do in any way other than some sort of robotic, like check the boxes sort of way, right? And so making space and time to have those relationships is going to be really important. This is one of the reasons that our DCS caseworkers are so challenged to do this kind of work, is because their caseloads are way overburdened. No human person can do what we are asking them to do, even at like a baseline level of like, fill out all the paperwork you need to fill out. Like, this is not I want to be very clear. This is not an indictment on any caseworkers. This is an indictment on a system that has not supported them or supported our young people or prioritized spending so that they can have what they need. I feel like that's important to say. When I say the system, I don't mean the people within the system necessarily. Boundaries, self-determination, awareness of systemic and cultural barriers. I think this is really important. We have to do our own work around the biases and understanding we hold of why young people do the things they do. We have to be clear on we have to check ourselves that the experience that I have is not going to be the same experience that a young woman of color has, or a Black young man has. Like, my experiences are going to be different. And so being able to be aware of the ways in which that could be different, and also be incredibly humble about the reality that I can never know it all. And I am willing to believe a young person when they tell me something that's true for them. So not saying like, that, why do you always make it about race? Or like, oh, that definitely wasn't about, it was about your attitude, not about your skin color. Like, nah, it could very well have been about someone's bias around their skin color, and the way they reacted to that young person would have been totally different if they were white. That's just a reality in our world, in our systems. And so us meeting young people with that understanding is going to be really, really critical. I don't know if it's on here. I think it's kind of referenced a couple times, but power sharing is one of the really important things around transformational relationships. So as much as possible, reducing the amount of power you're wielding over the young person, making decisions in partnership, and any place that there is a power differential, or any place that you have to sort of overrule, making that transparent and clear so that the young person understands what's happening. If you are transparent around the ways that you have to do that, you actually can preserve the relationship. Whereas if you just do it and say like, listen, this is how it has to be, then you can actually really harm that relationship, and you push the young person back into this, idea of like, adults just make decisions for me. They don't even care what I want. And so making sure that you are as transparent as possible about what power you have to wield and in what ways you will wield it can be absolutely critical for preserving a relationship. Let's see, what else are we missing on here that you all said? You all had some amazing, I knew the collective wisdom of this group was going to give us exactly what we needed to understand in transformational relationships. I'm so glad I asked you. Peaceful, nonviolent communication. I love that. I actually heard, I had a colleague the other day who was like, listen, we're a nonviolent organization. Why do we keep use so many bullets in our PowerPoint? And I was like, okay, that might be a little bit too far in the nonviolent communication, but I respect the idea where you're headed with that. Joy. I love that. In transformational relationships, being able to meet a young person with celebration and joy when they succeed, you being joyful about the things that are joyful for you and sharing that with the young person, there is a incredibly limited amount of opportunity for young people to celebrate joy with adults in their life who are just super jazzed for them. So I love that. I love that you put joy in there. Motivation, positive influence. Being tactful, being able to tell a young person the truth, but to do it in a way that that really honors who they are as a person and is mindful and kind. All right, I think we got most of the things on here, and I think you all, I had a list of things. I was like, well, let's make sure we talk about all these things. You grabbed all of them. So the collective wisdom of this group really did help us understand the elements of a transformational relationship. Angie, I will share the results of this Menti with you so that you can send it out to folks, because there's a really great, collection of a definition here. So I'll make sure that this gets shared with you. I'll also share my slide deck with you so that you can share it out with people if they want it as well.
Oh, that is great. Thank you.
So let's move on. Let me see here. Hold on real quick. So I think we have a little bit of space for some questions. Do we have a little bit of time for some questions, Angie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we'll do some questions, and then I would love to hear from you. What is one commitment you're taking away from today? I mean, you can drop that in the chat, but I would love to hear what questions you have.
And you can feel free to come off mute or put them in the chat, whatever works best for you. Raise your hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Anita Rangaswamy, and I just wanted to say I like the idea of this Menti, and I haven't used it before, so thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. It's mentimeter.com, and you can actually use it to make word clouds. You can use it to seek feedback. You can do polls with it. Like, there's all kinds of cool resources. I highly recommend it. It's good for in-person meetings too. I've used it in both capacities.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for sharing.
I just want to say that this has been excellent. I am working with kids. I have sort of a gut understanding for why they don't ask for help. But in talking with other people, sometimes they're saying, well, why don't they just ask for help? And I don't have the words to put out there, even though my gut kind of gets it. And now I have words. So I want to thank you for that. This is just really, really good to be able to explain to other people, not to expect them to do what they aren't able to do, what they're still trying to develop, a skill they're trying to develop. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And this also slots into the understanding of adolescent brain development. So this is also a time in a young person's life where they are disconnecting and pushing away the adults in their life so that they can create their own identity. And so those two things together really can create like big, huge problems for asking for help. And the question of, well, why don't they just ask for help? I have heard it 1 million times. So I feel Sue on that one.
Hey, Sam, it's Jessica.
Yeah.
Hi. I wonder if you have do you ever talk to a young person about some of this research, like not in a researchy way, but in a like, hey, this is kind of what's happening with you right now because of this, this, and this. So I understand why this is difficult. And if you have, how has that landed or helped or not helped? Yeah,
so this one, to have this kind of a conversation with young people really requires a deep and trusting relationship. I think that's really important. But what I will say is that, so I don't know if y'all are aware of it, the National Association of Social Workers actually put out a full curriculum on adolescent brain development. It was a partnership with a bunch of agencies. And one of the things that they did is they trained young people to co-facilitate this curriculum. And I work with one of those young people who's now a colleague of mine. I guess she's still younger than me, but she's no longer a young person. She's like almost 30. but because she was a young person when she trained with this curriculum, she told me that nothing in her life had been more healing than understanding the realities of her adolescent brain and the ways in which her adolescent brain was changing so that she could destigmatize some of the experiences she had where people told her it was just because she was a bad kid, or just because, like she was just not smart enough or she wasn't working hard enough or whatever that was. I do think there is a space for really meaningful conversations with young people about this kind of data. And it would really require a good, solid relationship and permission seeking. So if I was going to have this conversation with a young person, I might say like, hey, one of the things I've really noticed is that there's been a pattern where you have needed help, but you haven't asked me for help. And I've seen some research around that makes me wonder if maybe this is some of what you're experiencing when you come to a time when you really need some help. Could I talk to you a little bit about that and maybe see that lines up with what your experience is? And so I think I would really approach it from a space of curiosity, where it's, hey, I'm noticing this. Hey, I'm curious about, does this line up with your experience? Does that feel like it's right to you? Like, I would ask questions really in that way, so that the young person was not feeling like, I've diagnosed you with something and I've written on my clipboard and you can't see my notes, right? Like, that's so much of the experience of young people in foster care. So making sure that you're engaging with I don't know that this is the right answer, but I read this and I'm curious about whether this is what you think.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sam. I'm Gina,
Yeah.
and I'm fascinated by your work and your perceptions. And I wonder if you have information about the family systems that also discourage help seeking, not just role modeling, but any research on, the family system dynamics at all. Thanks.
I am certain that research is out there. That family systems research hasn't been a big part of my work, but I'm trying to think about the study that we read around help seeking that was really informative to some of our work around this. And I will try and attach it to the email that I send to Angie. But I think you're right. There's also a piece of family systems. There's a cultural system piece as well that's related to this, where there might be some, cultural understandings of what it looks like to seek help or how we engage in community with one another, both positive and negative, and kind of in both ways. Is it Heidi? Is that how I pronounce that?
It's Heidi.
Heidi.
Hi. Yeah, I have a little bit of experience talking with foster youth as well. I was a foster parent. I'm an adoptive parent now. But when I would go into foster homes, we were doing teen pregnancy prevention at the time, but I would always include a lesson on mental health. And it was just very general. Like, this is what bipolar is, and this is the symptoms of bipolar. I would always preface with, don't self-diagnose. Make sure you are talking to a professional if you think you have any of this. But the youth really, really appreciated having that general knowledge, because a lot of them had received a diagnosis and they were never explained what it was, how to get help. They were just taken to therapy. They were just given the diagnosis, given the medication. So I feel like it's very empowering for them to know, to have that information, information that they can understand, obviously at their level. But like you said, Sam, not personalizing it to, like, you have this and this is what it is, but just general, like, this is a possibility, or this is something that people may struggle with, not even talking about foster youth, but in general. But I always got a lot of positive feedback from doing that class, because again, they had these diagnoses and they had absolutely no idea what that meant. Nobody had sat with them and explained it to them and told them there is treatment, there is some things that you can do to improve on this, and to live a happy, fulfilling life. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it really gets at this question of autonomy. So, when you have not even had the autonomy of understanding the diagnosis that a doctor has given you, or understanding why you're taking the medicine you're taking, or understanding what that medicine is or does, understanding how your brain works maybe differently than other people's brains. I mean, think about the lack of autonomy that comes from someone putting a diagnosis on you, giving you a vial of pills, and then saying, if you don't take them, you're out of compliance and we're going to kick you out of the group home. Like, it's bonkers to me that that's what's happening in the foster care world. And yet it is, like, consistently over and over again. There was this huge study recently done around over medication in foster care. This is an ongoing problem. And you're absolutely right that demystifying and giving good information, even if it's just general information, can be so helpful to young people feeling like they have some control of their lives. All right, Angie, I think we might be out of time here.
I have one more question that was in the chat, and Sarah asked where you could find the NASW study that was put out.
I will send it to you in a link. It's actually an open source curriculum, so it's a 2 full day curriculum. But if you just want to read over it, you absolutely can. And it is open source. Anyone can pull it off the shelf and train it. It is fully available for anyone to use. But I'll send the link to you as well, Angie.
That is amazing. And Rachel, I'll get to you in 1 second. I think one thing that I always think about whenever we're talking about we talk a lot about youth and how to have relationships with youth. And I just kind of want to remind everyone that these are also the principles we need as adults. And if we have never had that mitigation, if you've ever been in a training with me before, I'm sure you're tired of hearing that adults are just children who've turned 18. And so if there has not been that mitigation, if there hasn't been that intervention, I was thinking of the asking for help, right? The help seeking behaviors. Like we put that out to adults all the time. If we've never learned and we've never had that as an adult, that there is supportive help there, we don't know how to ask for that help, right? And especially when we're going through traumatic events, that natural thing for our body to do and our brains to do is to shut off that, our thinking part, right? And we're just trying to survive at that moment, and which makes it even harder to ask for help. And because we can't even access those help seeking places, why it's so important that we model this for our children and our youth, so that way when we turn into adults, but remember that, if we are working with adults in those populations, or even just adults in general, that that can be the thing. I think one of the things with the employees here work really hard on is learning, 1, how to say no, and 2, how to ask for help. And we are all very grown, capable adults that have a very difficult time asking for this, and how important that relationship piece is, no matter kind of what age you are at. Rachel, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Angie. And also what you just said was super amazing. So thank you for that as well. I'm here in a few different roles. For one, I'm a school nurse, so I do interact with young people on that basis. I also have been in behavioral health for 6 years or more, and I'm working with a new nonprofit starting in Tucson, trying to do some of this stuff for foster children and other children in need. So I know we're running out of time, so I was mostly hoping that I could get contact information for you, Sam, and maybe Angie as well, so that we can kind of talk more in the future about what we can do to help each other.
Yes, at the end of the slideshow, I did put my contact information. I as a contractor, I have opportunity to do additional contracting work. So if folks are like, hey, we want a training, or we want someone to, come work with us, or do some coaching with our team, or help design something, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to work with some of your organizations. I love the national work I get to do, but I also really love opportunity to invest in my community here in Arizona as well. So let me know if there's anyone, and I'll include my contact info in the email that Angie will send out.
Yeah, perfect. I'll make sure that everyone has the slides and the recording, and also Sam's contact information and ours. And Rachel, specifically for you, Hillary Mahoney put her contact information in the chat. She is the she's the chair with the Southern Arizona Trauma Informed Network. So they're one of the partners of the consortium and do amazing trauma informed work down in Tucson. And so she's definitely a connect. Sam, thank you so much. I will speak on behalf of some other people, but I know that we could probably have this conversation for hours. And it's, fascinating as a biological mother of 4 that range from, how old are the kids now? 11 to 23. And then having bonus children all along the way, we've done our children a disservice all around, right? Like I'm looking at that competency and all of power sharing, you know, all of those pieces that naturally what I was thinking of during the thing is our systems are set up so that those don't happen. And how do we counteract the messages that they're receiving routinely throughout the day, that they don't have power in their life, that they're not competent, right? That they can't do this yet because they're this, they don't get to have this kind of knowledge because I don't know why, right? Like they haven't magically hit 18 or, you know what I mean, or on their own. And this conversation was so important. So I'm so glad we were finally able to make it work. And I appreciate working with you in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your attention, and I hope that the rest of you goes great.
Thanks, Sam. Bye.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. All right. Well, it is going to be hard to follow up after that. I do want to go into some announcements. If you were not able to join us at the summit, that is where we did the Marcia Stanton Award. And so for this year, for 2022, the Marcia Stanton Award, look at that, has been given to Dr. Gina Touch. She just talked and we're really excited about that. We will be sending out an email to let everyone know how to contact her and the great things that she is doing in Phoenix also. So give some kudos to Dr. Gina. Thank you. Thank you. We are super excited to highlight your work this year. Another piece also is we are gathering resources. Our Resilience Coordinating Council, as you may remember, works on trauma sensitive schools and what are some of the things we can do. And I do not know why this is working. I mean, why this is automatically timed. We are gathering resources specifically on funding for trauma sensitive schools. So one of the things that we have found in our work is that there's a lot of funding out there. How to access that though, and what schools can do to access that, what that looks like on the local level, the county level, the state level, the federal level is also different. And so we wanted to be able to compile the collective wisdom of all of you. If you have information on where schools can receive funding, if you do trauma sensitive work within your community with the schools, and it is a resource for them. We have the QR code, and if you're like me and I still can't figure out QR codes, even though I feel like they came out a long time ago, I put the direct link in the chat for you all. All right. Next thing is our upcoming trainings and events. So for those who were at the summit, we know that Dr. Acosta had a little calendar mix-up and so is coming back to see us on December 7th. For those of you who are not at the summit, you have a special treat because Dr. Acosta has opened it up to everyone. So he is going to be speaking on healing-centered paradigms and healing-centered engagements, not only within education, but also within community. And what are some of the things that we can do within our community and the healing-centered paradigm? I put the link to register for his webinar, which is December 7th from 11 to 12:30 our time, in the chat. And we also have a webinar by Christy Mullner from Maricopa Department of Public Health on trauma-informed nutrition. She spoke at our schools work group, and it was so amazing. And it was information that I had never quite heard with the nutrition aspect and being trauma informed. Had a lot of great feedback of like, we really need to get this out there. And so we have opened up a webinar for the entire consortium that will be happening in February, on February 15th. And again, I will put the link in the chat for you all for there. There also, all of these are on our calendar. And our next quarterly meeting, I cannot believe that this year is already almost done. I'm not quite sure where it's gone, and Thanksgiving is next week. But our first quarterly meeting for 2023 is February 16th. And so I have the link for that also in the chat. Are there any questions on our announcements before we go into board updates? I wanted to make sure that we had enough time so that way we can do some, get your feedback on everything. Good morning, Kavita.
Hello, Angie. When is the next Train the Trainers ACES?
So the next Train the Trainers, our winter session is January 17th through February 14th. And we're still working.
Sorry, I didn't see the screen.
No, it's okay. I did announce everything else and I skipped right over that one. We don't have the rest of 2023 dates quite settled yet. They're almost settled. But our first one is open for registration on the website. All right, Kavita, I will pass it over to you for our board updates.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Angie. Hi, everyone. How are we already in November? We are just making our way really fast to the holiday season and celebrating the end of another year. As most of you probably already know, we also are looking at changes to our board membership. So I need to see if Pilar is on. No, she's not. Okay, that's okay. She will catch the recording. We are sadly saying goodbye to Pilar Vargas, who has been on our board for, gosh, quite a few years. I can't remember how many. But Pilar, thank you so much for your commitment to the board, for being such a thoughtful partner in our work. Pilar has lent her health plan lens and has been incredibly impactful on the board. I've really appreciated her expertise at the table. So Pilar, thank you so much. You will be sorely missed, but I'm grateful that our circles will continue to run small. So with that, I do also want to thank everyone that submitted nominations for our board. We were able to have 4 seats that were open, 2 of which were populated by myself and Rose Phillips. Both Rose and I decided to put our hat in the ring again. So congratulations to Rose for continuing to be on the board. And also we want to welcome 2 new board members that were nominated. Katrina Poplier, I hope I said your last name correct, Katrina, and Candace Hubert. So Katrina comes to us from First Things First, and Candace is through Maricopa County Department of Public Health. And Angie will give me the eyes if I have any of that wrong. So thank you to everyone for your support. Our board is a very unique board because we are very active. We actually do a lot of things. We don't just sit and talk every month. So thank you for the nominations. We will be reconvening our board this month and then hopefully in December as well. And then looking at who will hold the seats for chair, vice chair, note taker, which I forgot the name, secretary, and treasurer. I heard that Rose, you really want to be secretary again. That's an inside joke. Oh, she's not here to even hear it. Anyway, so more to come on who will assume into those seats. So with that, I am so excited to share with you the next couple of slides. The consortium has been on this journey. For those of you that have been on that journey for many years, maybe even from the beginning, I see a lot of familiar names on here. The ACE Consortium was really born from a grassroots movement and really through Marcia Stanton. As we have continued to grow, we have continued our very best to honor and stay true to our grassroots foundation, but also have recognized that we've had to become a nonprofit. So we are 501c3. With that came the need to really clarify our mission. At the time that we did that, that was probably back in 2019-ish, maybe 2020, no, 2019, I think, maybe 18. We created our mission statement. However, at that time, we didn't create a vision statement. And as our board started to develop and implement our action plan for this year, we realized how important it was for us to have a very clear vision statement that we just clearly didn't have, as well as a set of core values. So we were able to contract with a consultant. She's joyfully dubs herself as the nonprofit nerd. Her name is Jarrett Ransom. She's been a friend of the consortium and has helped us in quite a few ways. And so we have continued that relationship with her, and she walked the board through a process to be able for us to identify a vision statement. And I want to take a moment to say that this vision statement is living and breathing, and it is one that won't just sit on a shelf somewhere and collect dust. And I can say that confidently because I will tell you in full transparency that our action plan had to come to a grounding halt for a couple months because we didn't know where our North Star was. And we actually couldn't figure out what our action steps should be for our action plan because we didn't have our North Star. So that is a true testament to how much this will be a living and breathing vision statement that will really ground us in our work. So you'll see on your screen the statement: a trauma-informed Arizona that nurtures the growth, healing, and resilience of individuals and communities. In just a minute, we're going to move into some breakout rooms to hear your feedback. And Angie's actually going to help us through, walk us through what our activity will be. But before we do that, I also want to introduce what we came up as our core values. And again, these are ones that we would like to get your feedback on. So you'll see them on your screen: empathic safety, collaboration or collaborative, inclusive, intentional, integrity, and community. I will tell you that we did not arrive at these easily. It's always so hard to drill down to our specific core values. Our first list was quite large, and we had to really wrestle with what are our true core values. We didn't want to have more than 6 to 8 because we then wouldn't be able to keep them all in our brain. So here are the 6 that are on the screen. Angie, do we have that? Thank you. We do. So we took it to a step further because empathic safety might be defined slightly different amongst each of us in the group. So, man, if any of you have done wordsmithing together as a group, it can make your brain really hurt. So kudos to the board of directors and to Angie and to Jarrett for helping all participating in that discussion. So you'll see on your screen, empathic safety: our words and actions promote and nurture a sense of safety for all. And as I read these, and as you read them yourself, pay attention to what your initial response is and note it down on a piece of paper. Collaborative: we honor and respect all paths and share in decision-making to achieve change. Think about, as we walk through these, do these resonate with you as members of the consortium? Inclusive or inclusivity: our work is inclusive of diverse individuals and communities. And we talked a lot about how the consortium, to the credit of Angie's leadership and the team, really wants to make sure that our work is not just Maricopa County centric, and has done a formidable job in being able to accomplish that. So I'm very proud of that. Intentional: we're committed to being thoughtful and purposeful in all of our interactions. Kind of reminds me of our speaker today. Integrity: we operate in a manner that is authentic, transparent, and trustworthy. And community: we recognize that change is ongoing and happens within the context of relationships and community. I can't believe we're at this point. It's amazing that we're at this space where we can share the vision statement and core values with you all as members of the consortium. Having done so, we recognize that we might have blind spots. We might have shortfalls in our thinking and the way that we view our core values and the vision of the Arizona ACES Consortium. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Angie to help us walk through an activity where we get your feedback on the work of the board and of the team at the ACES Consortium.
Thank you, Kavita. I did copy and paste in the chat the all of the sentences, the words and the sentences, so that we had them when we go into breakouts. Before we go into breakouts, so I'm going to open up a poll. And this is, I made sure that it was anonymous in this poll. And what you're going to see is you're going to see each question is one of the core values, right? Empathic, safety, collaborative, inclusive, intentional, integrity, and community. And then you're going to see 1 to 5. And so I'd like you all to rate each core value and how closely you feel it aligns with what the consortium provides, or what has been your experience with the consortium. So 1 would be this core value doesn't align at all. 5 would be this core value is completely aligned with how I have always known the consortium. And we're going to give you guys a few minutes to do this, because I really would like some thought into this. When we do send the email for the recording, I will also have a Survey Monkey, which is really what you all are doing right now, but in Survey Monkey form for those who are not able to be with us. So I have the poll open now. You should all see it. If you could just rate each one of the core values on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, this core value does not align at all, and 5, this core value aligns with how I've known the consortium. I mean, we could play some Jeopardy music. I'm just kidding.
Angie,
That would raise my anxiety.
Yeah.
Angie,
Sandy?
can you roll the slide back to empathic safety so we can read it while we're rating?
Yeah, it's also in the chat.
Oh,
I
didn't look up. Sorry.
It's okay. All of them are in the chat. So we'll just kind of go through them again, though, just so that we see them. Empathic safety, our words and actions promote and nurture a sense of safety for all. Collaborative, we honor and respect all paths and share in decision making to achieve change. Inclusive, our work is inclusive of diverse individuals and communities. Intentional, we are committed to being thoughtful and purposeful in all of our interactions. Integrity, we operate in a manner that is authentic, transparent, and trustworthy. And community, we recognize that change is ongoing and happens within the context of relationships and communities. Is inclusive listed twice? Did I list inclusive twice on the poll? That's what I get for creating it while I was doing something else. Oh, I did. That one is. Sorry about that.
I just love this group. So much grace. Where are we at, Angie, in terms of number of folks that have? Does it tell you like a count?
Yeah, we have just over half.
Okay.
I was just going to give everybody just a minute or two more. It's been 2.5 minutes so far, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, April, I can do that. Just give me a second.
Thank you, Kavita.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to give about 30 seconds more. And then what we're going to do is I have breakout groups that are open. There is between 4 and 5 in each breakout room. And I really, if each room could pick somebody that could report back to us, right? Or that could be a note taker that wouldn't mind sending the notes that were within your breakout rooms, but really have some conversations around how closely do these proposed core values align with your experience? Do you have any other suggestions? Have we missed anything? If they don't align, are there other suggestions on words? Really just having that, we want your input. What has your experience been? And if we don't match with these core values, what are some suggestions that we could help improve that? So, okay, I am going to, we just about have everybody who, everyone's participated. Okay. All right, I am going to open breakout rooms, and we are going to, it says on here 20 minutes, but Sam was amazing, and so we gave a little bit more space for questions. So I'm going to say 15 minutes. That gives us about 5-10 minutes to wrap up at the end. Kavita did put the vision and mission statement in the chat, and I am going to re-put the core values with the sentences in the chat so that way you can access them when you are in the breakout rooms. And all breakout rooms are open, and we'll bring you back at 11:20. And for some reason, every time the teleportation happens and all of the Zoom rooms close, in my head is always the welcome back Cotter song, always. So it's welcome back, always on loop in there. So we'd love to hear from everyone. You know what, I'm going to stop sharing right now. You all know our website, and so you don't need the last slide so that we can see everyone. But I'd love to hear from our any of the note takers in the room in the last few minutes that we have together of the feedback. So y'all lead it.
I'll go.
Sarah.
I'll go. Okay. In our group, we were group 3. We chose inclusivity. So I hope, not everybody chose the same one kind of type thing. But, we definitely talked about, we had, Rachel was in our group, and inclusivity, we talked about having resource materials for our deaf and blind community. Maybe somebody doing sign language during these trainings to where, they can send resources to people and possibly maybe even Braille, of material and resources to help that communities, support themselves. And, because they probably have experience, like Rachel was kind of sharing with us, they have experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, and she's not even, you know, sure if there's even that support for family members, let alone people, you know, at our school. And so we thought, you know, inclusivity would be a great one to address, to suggest maybe adding, you know, maybe you guys have it already, I'm not sure, but to have, you know, deaf and, you know, or resources and materials and stuff for the deaf and the blind community.
Yeah, that is great idea. Oh, April, you have ALS and CART at all of the staff lunch and learns. That's
Sorry,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
ASL, sorry, not ALS.
Oh. You know what? And my brain saw that. Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Well, I'll go real quick. So I had 2 new members with me. So we kind of talked a little bit more about the consortium itself, but their feedback basically on like the vision statement and the core values were, it's perfect, they're meaningful, it's a great foundation to build from. And Deanna also mentioned that we could apply all of these to our own daily work and the work that we do. So this isn't just for the consortium, it's all of us could be doing this. So yeah, but it was great to have some members their first time here, and looks like they'll be coming back again. So very excited about that.
Oh, that's it. What a perfect person to be paired with. April's been with us from just about the beginning.
It feels like
it. It feels like it. Bob, I see you're off mute.
Well, I was just gonna comment, add something to what April said, and say that that it would speak loudly enough to you that it's something that you could incorporate into the way you operate through the day. To me, it feels like we've accomplished something.
Yeah.
And I was not the note taker. I think Elisa was in our group. So I don't want to put her on the spot unduly, but I do.
Well, thank you, Bob. Okay, so what we discussed was the really looking at maybe switching inclusive, the definition of Sandy and Bob, if I'm wrong, switching the definitions of collaborative and inclusiveness, because they seem to define, they actually seem to match more in our experience. And I have literally 3 notes here, so don't, please let me know. What we talked about in collaborative is there is what we'd like to see is an invitation to share in the advancement of the cause and the work. So there's that piece there. And really, when you look at collaboration, the definition is under inclusive. Our work, you know, I mean, or flip that around. We honor and respect all paths and share in decision making to achieve change. That is almost a definition of inclusivity. And please understand, I don't know the consortium well enough to really speak to this at all. But we're looking at 1, an invitation and collaboration, and 2, inclusiveness, to really say what it is that we mean by being inclusive.
No, that's great. That's great. Sandy, Bob, was there anything that good? That's good. That's good feedback. You have to, you know, it's a lot harder than you think it may be to come up with when you have that time and on Zoom. That's great feedback. Elisa?
And please know, I've been on governing boards before, and I was a governance chair, so I know how difficult this work is. Please, I'm not nitpicking.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
And don't, we don't even remotely take
Sandy, and I got none of this, but Sandy was saying something absolutely brilliant, but all of a sudden we were flipped back, but it was good. I didn't capture any of it, Sandy. I apologize, but it was fabulous.
this is my morning, Elisa. I don't even remember what we were talking. I mean, I know we were talking about the phrasing of, you know, our work, and our work is that the board, the members, or our Arizona. So that doesn't feel very inclusive to use the word our as a definition. So that inclusivity of, it's not just the work we do, but we take responsibility for those who are in the dominant culture to understand what equity is, systemic inequalities, and being able to make that extra effort to be mindful of what inclusivity looks like in Arizona, or should look like, I guess I should say that. Though I don't like the word should often, but.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sandy.
And just to build off of that, I was in group 2 with Haiti and Ann Acosta, and we were talking about belonging instead of using inclusivity, because inclusive often means that we are building something and then adding people in versus building something with people. So just, you know, looking at the play on words, and from meetings that we've all been in together, well, many of us have been in together, where we've had our colleagues look and say, well, you invited us after the fact to have input into this section instead of building it with us, and, you know, with us initially. So just that piece. And again, I'm not tearing this apart, but we had a couple other pieces of feedback. I think this is a great start for where we're at. In the mission, it mentions to prevent ACEs. And that may be just too big of a task. It doesn't mention to mitigate how ACEs occur. So I wonder if there's some wordplay we can do there, instead of looking at the prevention of, we're looking at mitigation, and hoping that reduces the numbers of ACEs that our students and children and adults experience, right? And then the other piece, Haiti had mentioned that there's not much resonance with hope in this, but her experience of the consortium is that it consistently resonates hope and the idea of hope. So she was mentioning that there's not much mention of hope and what the future might look like in that vision. And lastly, there's not much mention of self-agency or empowerment in the community section of, like, our intent to build the self-agency and the empowerment for our community members. So just a few things. I think this is a great start, and I hate to like ramble it off, but I know I left you with 1 minute to close us out. So thank you.
No, that was great. And we will be sending a Survey Monkey, which pretty much is what we've done here, but allows for that kind of open space too. So if anything, if all of this conversation has spurred additional thoughts that you've come up with, I thank you, all of you, for remaining here and giving us this feedback. It's incredibly important. And it was like, oh yeah, like, why doesn't it say those things? It really helps us see kind of our blind spots when we, you know, how sometimes you get stuck on a lane. And yeah, so all right, it is 11:30. I want to honor your time. Thank you for being here with us for the full 2 hours. Is a long time, especially with no break. And we really hope you have a great end of your year. I can't believe it's 6 weeks left. And if you need anything, we are always here. Thank you.